Clay Shively, welcome to the Call Room Road to Seattle. How are you doing this afternoon?
Doing really well. Thanks for having me on.
Back on the podcast, we were texting this morning about today's podcast. You said you were hitting the links. Got to know, you coming into this conversation happy or frustrated based on the play on the course today?
So today was actually my first time ever golfing. And we did a little scramble and we played 9 holes. And my buddy, who's pretty good, like we were going off of his shots, definitely the most. But we finished 5 over, and that was my goal. So I'd say I'm happy for my first time ever. I lost like 4 or 5 balls and like definitely left some divots in the course, but I'll take it for my first time. It might be a new hobby for me this summer.
Do you follow the sport of professional golf at all? Do you know what's been going on this past week?
Uh, Shoot, I don't at all. I'll be honest. I peeked
Really?
over at my friends' screens that were watching. A lot of my friends were watching the. Gosh, okay, dude, don't leave this in here because I am so ignorant about golf.
PGA Championship.
Yeah. A lot of my buddies at school were watching the PGA Championship, and so I'd peek over and watch their screens at school. But don't know too much.
Okay, I'll briefly explain it for you. Over the past week, the world number one, Scotty Scheffler, he won 4 of the last 5 tournaments, which like hasn't been done since Tiger Woods. There was
Dang.
like a miscommunication when he was driving to the course for the second day of play. He had a baby that week. His wife had a baby that week. A lot was going on. He was definitely the favorite, and he actually got arrested and charged with like a felony.
What?
Yeah, but he got out of jail. They posted his bail. He paid the bail, and then he played that day, and he shot like I think like 5 under the day he got arrested. So he still
Dang.
made his tee time. Anyways, but the
That's
charges were a
amazing.
complete joke. They're gonna drop him. It was like complete miscommunication, but like literally crazy. Like, and it
That's
was
hilarious.
I'm not the biggest golf guy or fan, but I've started to get a little more into it, and like even mainstream media was picking up on it.
That's
It's like
crazy.
has a kid, world number one, gets arrested, still plays. So
That's funny.
that
I've
is
been off
crazy.
social media like this week, so there's what you miss when you get off social media, I guess.
Is that intentional with more serious races coming up and trying to channel out the noise, or is that just coincidental?
No. I mean, I I think a little bit like just wanting to lock in and get more focus and get more sleep and stuff. But really, I just overall I have like a 15-minute screen time limit on Instagram for myself. So like I'm not on it much anyways. So it's not very hard for me to just delete it. So yeah.
15 minutes. Does that give you enough time to go through all your friends' stories? Or you still got stories to go through
No,
at
that's
the
the
end of the
thing.
15?
That's I usually pick and it's not good. I pick, do I see some whatever Instagram Reels has for me that day, which is usually something crazy, or do I click through stories or do I respond to messages? It's usually I have to rotate which one I choose.
For golf, how would you compare it to the sport of running, where running is like a very, not that this was like a golf competition, but like in a race, the gun goes off and you're with your thoughts for that entire race. Whereas golf, I think is completely different, where you have time to think between shots and you can get in your head a lot. I don't really think you get in your head too much during a race. It's generally before. What was that like? That new experience of like a new mental state. How'd you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is kind of one of those mental things. I think something different for sure is if I mess up or make a mistake mid race, there's nothing for me to throw or I'm not going to yell in frustration. So I just kind of have to suck it up and just keep running if I make a mistake during a race. Whereas if I mess up in golf, like I did plenty of times today, um, then you just kind of let some of your anger out, I guess.
Let's go back to the cross season and kind of bring people up to speed, because I had you on the podcast, I think, in the summer of last year, 2023, after a very successful track season. Take me through your cross season, ultimately how things went down, and just the general reflection of it, like 8 months removed from it.
Yeah, cross was super fun. Um, I got to there were some great races kind of around here that I got to run. One up in like the Kansas City area where we had a pretty strong field, and that was kind of my first like hard 5K of the year. That was super fun. Got to go up with my team to Roy Griak, which from a team perspective, we kind of had some setback. We weren't quite able to accomplish all that we wanted, but we still had a great time. And that was kind of like my first ever big like cross win, which so that was like super fun. Um, it was definitely hard. The race, the course up there is brutal, but it was super fun. State was great. Got to win alongside one of my teammates. Like we basically crossed the line together. So like we'll forever cherish those memories. And then things going into NXN, like definitely all season had sights set on NXN and was really excited for that. And then, of course, as things tend to go in the sport, it didn't go quite how I wanted it to, and I started developing a little tendonitis, or like tendon injury in my foot, and then so I just ran on it through NXR, thinking I'd be fine, and I felt okay. Like I wasn't didn't have as much as I wanted to at the end, and just barely got through in fifth place, and then for the next 2 weeks, it was like I maybe ran 10 miles total in that next 2 weeks and was like trying to decide whether or not I should run NXN. And so I just decided like I was just going to let them know, like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. And once I let them know, they were like, you should probably let us know sooner than later so we can make sure that the sixth guy gets to come. And so then I just decided then that it was just best to get healed up, and so that's what I did. I took 2 or 3 weeks off, and yeah, it was hard watching that race um, from the through my phone and not being there, but definitely I think it was a smart decision and wouldn't didn't really did not want to sacrifice any of my indoor season, and so I think I probably would have done that if I decided to run through that.
Last week on the podcast, I had on Jackson Hydish. I actually think you were name drop a few times in relation to talking about the 2024 season. And in our conversation, we reflected on his remarkable spring track season last year, where he broke
Mm.
4 minutes in the mile and then a few months later got injured and has kind of been in a spiral of injuries. Comparing that to you, you kind of had a rough end to your cross season. And then a few months later, you win an indoor national title. You run 4 flat. It truly is remarkable. Can you speak to the aspect of this sport? Speaking specifically on you, I just brought up Jackson because he's another guy in a similar scenario where just a few months you can experience like a very low watching a race that you were hoping to compete for the win in. And then a few months later, on top of the world, almost breaking the 4 minute barrier, winning a national title. Can you speak to that aspect of the sport, the ups and downs nature? And when you're in a down, like don't get too down because the sun's just around the corner. You know, the sunset's just around the corner.
Hmm. No, I mean honestly, it it sucks. Like it does. All the little injuries or even like getting sick. Like I know like plenty of guys, and I even like got sick for a little bit. And you're like, really, like these are the kinds of things that are stopping me from chasing after these goals that I've had, maybe for years, maybe for months. But really, like every single setback has um, it's not only like, yes, everyone says like the lows make you more thankful for the highs. That's totally true. But honestly, they've served as just kind of like a good mental check for me every time. Um, like every every little setback I've had has kind of been actually at a time where maybe mentally I was kind of losing sight of like what really mattered, and I was getting really fixed on, oh, I have to win a national title, or oh, I have to break 4 minutes in the mile, or oh, I have to get my training up to this. When like in reality, like I want to have the mindset I feel like I want to grow and learn to have is just enjoying the process more and rolling with the ups and downs and not being so defined by my results or things like that. And so every single one of those little setbacks that I've had actually in the last year have kind of served as like a mental check that kind of got me back on track to where I feel like I needed to be mentally approaching the sport with not being so results focused, not being so focused on uh, my time or the goals that I had maybe months or years in advance. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I'd say it is. It's definitely challenging, but I think it's always for the best.
Do you ever have conversations with your high school coach or even like Coach Cornfield or Coach Smith? I know they very much approach the sport from the perspective you were just talking about there, of like approaching it from the process minded part of the sport. I remember in my conversations with both Cornfield and Smith, they hammered that point so much. And they have every right to talk about outcomes because they have them. And yet they talk about the process so much. Do you ever have
Right.
conversations with them about those sorts of things, particularly in moments where you are struggling with attachment to the outcome?
Yeah, I mean, I've had multiple conversations with both my high school coaches now and with coaches at NAU about that very thing. Um, like I think I maybe mentioned this last time I was on the podcast, but one of my goals for junior year was I was like, I want to break forward. I think I'm fully capable of it. I ran 404 in January, early January. Um, and then I ran 401 at Festival of Miles. And that was my best for that year. And like, yeah, breaking four was a goal for that year. So I think naturally you feel the temptation to tell yourself that that's like a failure of a season, like this, that you failed that season. But in reality, like that season grew me more than any other season I had ever run. Um, Not to mention, like I PR'd in every event, and I made it to. I hung with some of the top guys in some big races and stuff like that. And so, like, in no way was that season actually a failure, even though maybe for a week or so I felt like that. Um, and so, in the same way now, like just realizing that, um, like with NXN, like no, I didn't make it, but still, like I qualified for NXN, which I never thought I would have done. If you would ask me as a freshman, I probably didn't even really know what NXN was, and and then going on to uh, like this track season, like I ran like four flat twice, and it's like people are like, oh, is that? I bet that just sucks that you didn't break 4 minutes in the mile. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I got to go to Boston and like run at the New Balance National Meet and at BU, like these legendary places, and like I really enjoyed every single race and every single moment, and so it's like I'm not disappointed at all. Actually, like it's not only did I enjoy the am I happy with the result? But like you said, like the process getting there too was, um, it was different this year than it ever been. Like I kind of cut back on mileage a little bit and doing more intense sessions and things like that, and like I really enjoyed that. And so there was a lot that I really enjoyed, even though like maybe from an outside perspective there were some like quote unquote like failures or shortcomings.
You have such, I think, mature views as a high school senior. Most of the high schoolers I talk to do not have that perspective or those mindsets around the sport and the ability to appreciate the small wins along the way and something like a four flat mile, taking that as a gratitude instead of annoyance that they didn't run 3:59. Where do you
Hmm.
think this maturity in the sport comes from? Is it just you yourself personally, your parents, raising you and things from life trickling into the sport or different things within the sport? Where do you think you've kind of, I mean, these are things that I feel like I can confidently state because even successful kids in college I talk to who are like sophomores or juniors, a lot of them don't approach the sport with these mindsets. So I think that's where I use the word maturity, because I do think these mindsets come later on in the sport as people have learned the lessons throughout the years. So for you, why do you think you have such mature views at such a young age?
I think well, thank you first of all for thinking that, and I mean definitely like the mental aspect of this sport has like I've put a lot of work into it. I don't think I just had this mindset like when I started running fast or when I started running at all or things like that. And so like I've had to put in effort to like get to a place where I can be satisfied with the journey and satisfied with a race, even if I don't run as fast as I wanted to or beat a guy I wanted to or things like that. But a lot of it, one of the first thing that comes to mind is um, with my high school coach, both my coaches right now, we just um, we're always talking about like long-term development and like yeah, I want to do well in high school, but like high school is definitely not like what all our sights are set on. Like if so, then this season would be really, really stressful probably. And like, I'd feel a lot of pressure, to like go out and chase records or break four or win championships and things like that. When in reality, like sights are more set on like, NCAAs in a couple years or, but really making a team someday, world or Olympic team is like the big goal. And so the fact that I can, like remind myself that like guys that are making the team now like maybe didn't even have quite the high school season that I've already had, like and remind myself things like that, like definitely, even though I may not achieve every single goal that I want right now, like the big goals are still years down the road, and that's what my sights are still set on. And so that helps for sure, knowing that like the best is still yet to come for sure. And then also just like the biggest thing for me is just something my mom always tells me, and I just has become kind of a mantra for me is like run as a son, which run as a son meaning like running as a son of God, and just knowing that like I was created to run and to enjoy this and to put my best effort into it, and so like if I'm doing it, not just for myself, not just for the sake of a time, then like you'll never fail. You're not going to actually fail ever, if you're enjoying what you do and if you are putting your best effort into it. It's kind of my mantra. If you're, yeah, not doing it just for yourself, but you're doing it both for the sake of others and for the glory of God and things like that. That's like what I really try and focus on approaching races and just approaching training even. So I think that has definitely helped me a lot. Not that I don't get disappointed or anything like that, but just knowing that like there's like what people define as failure, like that does not define me, things like that.
We've mentioned those two indoor races where you ran four flat in the indoor season. Take me through those races and ultimately how you feel like they set you up for a successful outdoor season, and also just like capping off your senior year indoor season by winning a national title, running four flat, and doing so in pretty remarkable fashion, soloing it almost the whole way.
Yeah, yeah. Do you want a fun story about running at BU?
Let's hear it. Always here for the fun stories.
Yeah, so I ran the New Balance Grand Prix up in Boston, and that was a super fun race. Like, just kind of we went out, and I was gonna be happy. I thought I was gonna play out more tactically, but ended up being really fast, and JoJo like literally broke four. So I think I was a little shocked by it, but I think I ran like 4:04, and it felt like really good to just run a hard race again. So ended up staying. Actually, flew to DC because that's where my sister lived at the time, and stayed with her, and then because it was easier to stay there with family than to pay for a hotel for a week in Boston. And then so I came back to Boston the next weekend to run at BU and was super excited. Just like everyone hypes up BU and like says it's super super fun, super fast, kind of this magic to it. So I get there and I had already got my bib and everything like that and was kind of ready to go. But we were still waiting for the heats to come out. We saw the entries, but just hadn't seen the heats yet. And so they start posting the heats about like maybe 90 minutes out from my race. And I'm kind of like scrolling through. I like look at heat one, I look at heat two, and three and four, and I'm like getting into like heat 8 and 9 and 10, and like there's like 410 guys then. And I'm like, I do not see my name anywhere on here. And so go run to the infield, go ask the meet director, and he was like, "Did you declare?" And I was like, "What does that mean?" And he was like, "Well, you're not running today." And I was like, okay. So I didn't really know what to do with that information, but supposedly at BU, there's like a third step to checking in basically. And it's like you declare like 90 minutes out from your race that you're definitely going to run, because a lot of guys enter in two races and then they drop out of another, I guess. And I just never knew that. I didn't really read deep enough into the emails, I guess, but my coach had no idea either. He's been to thousands of track meets and he'd never heard of that. So basically, I'm told I wasn't gonna run, and honestly, like, kind of broke down. Like, I was like, dude, I just stayed in DC. I missed a whole week of school for a week just to run this race, and so I was super disappointed, super frustrated. But my coach was like determined to get me in, so he stood next to the meet director as he was handing out hip numbers and asked him after he after every heat if there was an open spot. If there was an open spot, is there an open spot? And so finally, when they get to heat 7, there was an open spot for me. And at this point, there was 15 minutes, I think, until the gun went off. And so went outside, took some deep breaths, prayed, did a couple strides, just like spoke, like tried to just sort through all the negative thoughts I was thinking and like get it out. And then I just went in, took my warm ups off, and got on the track. And so I basically warmed up for like 12
Legend.
minutes. Basically warmed up for like 12 minutes that race. And so I was going to be happy if I finished, and I ended up running 4 flat. So I was actually really happy with that race, because I feel like mentally that was the hardest thing I ever have done actually in the sport, was coming out of that much disappointment and frustration and going on to run like my best time ever. So that was definitely a crazy experience. So going into New Balance, I was like, I don't really know what the field's going to shape up to be like. I was hoping that maybe JoJo or Drew would be in it so we could have some other guys that were right around 4 minutes, but they JoJo wasn't there, and Drew ran the 2 mile and he broke the national record. So like, I'm glad he did that. But I was like, with a full warm up and a normal like day, I should be able to break 4. So I was just gonna go for it, um, and we went for it, and it felt really good, honestly, just being out there and like everyone is going nuts because everyone wants to see someone break 4 and stuff like that. So it was really cool experience, and ran 4 flat. I was looking at the lights and I thought I was ahead of them, and people watch the race back and they're like, "Were you ahead of the lights?" And I was like, "I don't know. I was right next to the lights and I didn't break 4, but it was still like there was maybe like 5 seconds of disappointment when I saw the time because I was like, dang it." But then I was like, whoa, I just won the national championship at New Balance, and so yeah, I took the victory lap, which I really regretted after like 150 meters. And no, but then it was just super fun. I had a lot of family there. And like just one of those moments where you just really get to, I was just really filled with gratitude and really felt like a lot of work I'd put in had paid off in that moment. And yeah, so it was just an awesome experience, and I'm super happy with how it went. Would have loved to break 4, but yeah, it was still great.
Every year, new kids go on the sub 4 chase. I feel like you're in year 2 of doing it. When was the first time you were aware that the 4 minute mile barrier existed? And when was the first time you realized that, oh, this is something I could maybe do one day?
Yeah, so um, I think when I was getting into running more, being from Wichita, Kansas, people started telling me about Jim Ryan more because it's where he's from. He ran the roads that I run on all the time, um, and I thought it was really cool. But I remember like I ran a 4x4 one time and split like 58 seconds or like 59 seconds my freshman year, and I was like, there's no way anyone ever does that 4 times in a row. I was like, that's just not possible. And so I definitely didn't think it was something I would ever be considering until really my sophomore year. My coach, supposedly, I ran like a 420 race indoors one time, and my coach could tell like by how smooth I looked and like just by my mechanics and stuff. He was like, could tell that I was capable of breaking 4 in high school. And then I went on to run like 410. And then I started to believe that I could break 4 in high school. Um, so then after like that junior year, that was definitely a big goal for me. Um, and I still like, I don't know, there was like a mile split like post. I don't even remember saying this, but it was like Clay Shively says, "I can't wait to break 4 minutes in the mile" or something like that. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't even remember saying that. And yeah, that's true. I can't like I can't wait. That's something I've wanted for a couple years. But at the same time, it's also like um, it's one sub 4 isn't quite what it used to be. Like it's still huge, but I don't think it's quite what it used to be. With the amount of guys that have done it, and two, like I just my mindset has shifted a lot in the last year, to being less results focused. That I'm like, heck, if I run four flat miles in high school, then like, how am I going to make sure that I'm still going to be like satisfied with that? And like, obviously, I'm not like banking on running another 4 flat mile. Like, I hope to run faster. Um, but like knowing that if I do, like that's okay. And honestly, that's kind of a cool story to tell people of I wanted this really bad and I didn't get what I want. But still, I think I'm fully capable of doing it, and so I hope to do it. Um, Probably at the festival miles or maybe at another meet. Um, but like, uh, yeah, I think it's a great like barrier, a goal to set for yourself to chase after. Um, but I think in the midst of that, people can lose sight of things like learning how to race and learning how to just adapt to different races. Like I remember at Brooks last year, I really wanted to break 4 because I'd run 4:01 2 weeks earlier, and so I went out in 60 seconds, and nobody else was really doing that. And so, in reality, I should have just adapted to the race and read the race better, even 150 meters in. But I was like, I want to break 4. And so I was just going after it. And I think I got like 6th or 7th in the race and ran like 4:07. So, whereas sub 4 is a great barrier to chase after and a great goal to set for yourself, if you're so hung up on it, you might actually um, you might actually do yourself harm by chasing after it.
Let's talk about two races from your junior year track season. First one being the Festival of Miles meet, where you ran 4:01, as you mentioned. You'll be the top returner this year. Take me through that race, where I feel like you were definitely the fastest junior, and you were in a race where 4 guys broke 4, and just everyone ran out of their mind. What was it like to run 4:01 yourself, as well as, or maybe you ran like 4 flat and change, as well as be in a race with just so many amazing guys who did remarkable things to close out their track seasons.
Yeah, that was so cool. I mean, still just like my sophomore year, I ran that race, and I was just like left that race like being like, this is the coolest meet ever. Like I can't wait to run this ever again, like every year again. And like so going back, it was just even more awesome that time because what used to be this little kind of Midwest meet, like now everyone was coming from everywhere to run here, which like thanks to Connor honestly for that, and Gary for breaking 4 there 2 years before, and like proving that like it can be we can have awesome meets here in the Midwest and stuff like that. And so just like the energy there and everything was just even more awesome. And so I was super excited, and I knew that I was in a good place. I actually felt great going into the race, and so my goal was just to let the guys up front do the work. I was kind of, I knew that some people were probably going to go out at a pace they couldn't hold. So I was kind of going to banking on picking some people off in the last like 600 meters. And also a goal for that race that I had was I just wanted to really leave it all out there and make sure I pressed on the third lap. And I definitely did that. My third lap was the fastest lap, and my last 50 meters of the last lap weren't so pretty, but like I did what I tried to do, which was run a hard third lap. And so it was just a great race for me, and a great experience all around. And just like the fact that I'm still able today say that I was a part of the fastest high school mile race in history, like is something like really cool to be a part of. And so yeah, well, no matter what happens this year, I know it's going to be fun, but I don't know if it'll like actually top last year, because last year was just super legendary. I hope we do run faster, but Yeah, last year was awesome.
The next race for you was the 2023 Brooks PR Invitational. You kind of took me through the race already, and you mentioned what
Yeah, yeah.
ultimately ended up happening. But let's go even further back in time. When was the first time you heard about the Brooks PR meet, and what was it like to ultimately get the invitation to the 2023 edition?
Oh, Brooks PR was actually like one of the first meets I ever heard about. Because my teammate had like won a pair of socks through like athletic.net. I was like Brooks PR socks. And I was like, what is that? And his name's Sam Ferguson. He's a beast. And he told me, he was like, dude, this is like a goal, like to make it to this meet, like the best of the best go to this meet. And so I was like, dang, that sounds awesome. And so then like every year, like my freshman and sophomore year, I'd like watch the Brooks PR and see what people would do. And obviously like what would have been my sophomore year was super awesome when Simeon broke 4 and like Connor won the 8, I think, that year. Um, and so to get that invitation my junior year was super exciting. I was kind of like really hoped I'd get it, but I wasn't gonna like reach out and ask anyone like, hey, have you got this invite, or like, do I need to reach out to them or anything like that. So they actually reached out to me first, and that was just super exciting because that was one that I did know about and had watched for years. And so to go there and not only like run the race, but they make it a super fun experience all around. Like they just treat you really well, and you have fun getting to know everyone else. Like honestly, the race was just like a very short part of that trip for me. Like the race didn't go exactly how I planned, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have fun, like with the going on the boat and stuff afterwards. So yeah, I love that meet and was super stoked to be invited last year, and yeah, really stoked to be invited back this year.
What were some of your favorite overall moments from your first Brooks PR experience? Any notable memories that you think back on with fond joy and appreciation?
Yeah, I loved one of my favorite memories from Brooks last year was I got to connect kind of for the first time with some of my future teammates like Zach and Aaron and Ford. Ford was definitely in St. Louis at Hoka. I'm pretty sure he was at Brooks. But anyways, just like I had only been committed to NAU for like a month or two at that point, and so you're still just a little nervous. Like, what's it going to be like? Like, I loved my visit there, but um, still just like, am I gonna connect with everyone like when I get there? But I had like just gotten to on like the boat and the dinner the night before, totally connect with those guys, and like already felt like a brotherhood and a team, and so that just got me really excited, even more excited about going to NAU. And yeah, then another funny thing about Brooks that I just remembered is the dinners they do, like sometimes a competition like East versus West. And being from Kansas, I'm just pretty sure I will never get picked because I'm like right in the middle. I don't think people know whether I should be East or West. So um, we'll see. Maybe they'll hear this and they'll pick me this year for one of the games. But yeah, those are some great memories that I got from Brooks.
Was it Cole Matison last year who, during that, said his favorite exercise was right over left? Do you remember that meme
Yeah,
moment?
yeah, and we were like, what even is that?
Legendary. That
uh,
was such a funny competition where like half the kids took it so seriously and then the other half were like, "This is a joke."
yeah,
But
literally,
I hope they run
literally.
it back again this year. It would be fun.
Uh huh.
Clay, a lot of kids listening today, I know, want to be in a position one day to run the Brooks PR Invitational. And one of the things I think a lot of kids that I talk to look up to is the fact of like the fastest of the fastest all hanging out with each other for a few days.
Mm.
Such a unique opportunity to have such a wide range of distances and like literally the best at that distance there through every single event group. Can you speak to that aspect? You did a little bit with your future NAU teammates, but just more broadly and generally, what it's like to be at the Brooks PR meet and be in a culture of just such success at every single distance.
Yeah, I love it because one of the biggest things, and like if you're a runner, then you have definitely spent some time on like mile split, and like you're looking through leaderboards and you're seeing people's names over and over again. And but for like then that kind of creates this thing where that person is just a time and a name, and so um, going into those races, like, and going into Brooks, like, there's a lot of guys that were just like a time and a name for me. But then, like, leaving the race, I was like, okay, now I literally know this guy, and like have his phone number, and like it was like super cool, seeing people's like personalities and their other interests. Like, I think like people are shocked, like, when I sometimes tell them, like, no, like, I really love like playing the guitar and like doing other stuff, like, and like learning those kinds of things about other people is super fun too, about like learning their other interests, and knowing that, we have lives outside of running, and we're not just times and names, and we don't just only run all day. So I love that aspect. I'm just like I'm kind of a extrovert. Like, I love talking to people. I love hearing people's emotions and stories and things like that. And so those are great opportunities to do that too.
Coming back to the Brooks PR meet this year, what went into that decision and hopping down in distance to the 800, not returning to the mile? Take me through this decision.
Yeah, I mean, like, with my experience last year, I was super pumped um, to accept the invite again for this year. And so with that opportunity, though, I also wanted to, maybe prove myself in a shorter distance that I think I capable of running pretty fast in and competing well in. So I'm a little nervous, like, because every 800 I've run has been not all. I ran one last year that was a good field, but like every 800 I've run, except for one, have been solo, and so I'm interested to just see what it's like, kind of in the midst of the field, and like, getting in position and things like that. And so that's something I'll definitely be working on and studying a little bit over the coming weeks. But yeah, so I'm super excited just to get in there and feed off of the energy again of the environment, and feed off of the energy of the people running fast times, and just lock in and go for it, and kind of let it rip. So that's really the goal for that race, is just to let it rip. And it's a lot more 800, a lot more all gas no brakes. So I feel like mentally it might be a little easier for me to approach than a mile, other than the maybe lack of experience side.
Clay, I'm gonna throw you some shade here, for the sake of entertainment on the podcast, but also because
Please.
we're friends off the podcast, so you can take it. You've got the slowest time in the field, and compared to Patrick Hilby, who has also been on this series and is leading that 800 field, I think he's probably the favorite going into it. Your PR is 3 seconds slower than Patrick's. Give me the case for Clay Shively to win this race.
Dude, the case for Clay Shively. So I could go into, oh, well, my 151, it was a negative split, and it was after I ran a DMR. Or I could go into, oh, well, I've actually run maybe under 150 in a 4x8. I have some cases that are logistic, but I I'm gonna go with saying the man. What's something cheesy that people are gonna remember? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Clay Shively is coming to Brooks with everything to gain and nothing to lose. So I think that's what people should be afraid of.
I love it. I love that mindset. I'm actually going to pull up a quote on my phone that is a banger quote, and I think
Do
you
it.
got to embrace it. Give me a sec. We'll just do this live. You ready for this quote, Clay?
Yeah, if I like it and I win, I'll get it tattooed.
It's very long, so
Okay, so maybe not.
this can be the Instagram. Oh, let's make this deal. Let's make this deal. If you win it, this has to be your description for the Brooks PR like recap post,
Boom. Deal.
and I have to make the post photo of us two
Okay.
holding the golden spike.
Yes.
Okay, you ready
Deal.
for this?
Deal.
The quote is, if you have nothing going for you, now is the best time to take a big risk because you have everything to gain and nothing to lose. Being the underdog makes you a dangerous competitor. You have nothing to lose, everything to gain, and no one sees you coming. Don't resent it, lean into it. You have the advantage of being underestimated, and it's an advantage you only get once.
Dang. That's good. I want to memorize that so
I'll send it to you. I'll text
I
it to
can
you.
just spit that word for word in a post race interview sometime. And
I
then
love
we'll do
that.
it. If I do that, then we'll get the post race interview, and we'll have to do a joint post with Clay and the running effect. And
Amazing.
yeah,
Amazing. Are you excited to do an off distance like the 8-1? I mean, I can almost guarantee you 100% you'll PR, but two, just like changing things up. People expect to see you in the mile. There's such conversation around, when are you going to break sub 4, or like, just the amount of times you're on 4 flat. Is it nice to change things up? And like, honestly, to that quote and to what you were talking about a minute ago, like being underestimated and being the guy that no one's going to talk about going into this race. I mean, maybe they will because you're Clay Shively, but not as much.
yeah, totally. I mean, I uh, I think it's gonna be fun because, well, one, in my training, like I don't race that much. Like we're pretty careful with the times, the amount of times, and how close together my like all out efforts are going to be. And so, like, I've only run one. I ran one hard 2 mile. I ran one hard mile this year. I ran a hard leg of a 4x8. But other than that, like I haven't gone out all out like many times. And so, like going into this race, I think it's fun to know that I can go all out and it's like not just another mile like I've run multiple times. And like I still love the mile, and I hope that that's what I get to continue to do. And like the 1500 like is probably going to be my best shot at ever qualifying for any kind of team or making it to NCAA's or anything like that. But to know that I can be like also a well-rounded athlete and run a fast 2 mile and a fast 800, like to kind of back up my mile time, is something that I want to have kind of in my portfolio as well. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Clay, in these final few weeks gearing up for the postseason, give me one workout you've done that you've walked away from the track and you thought, man, that was quick, that was impressive. I'm ready to go.
Man, so
What are you
you've
throwing
had
down in Kansas these days?
I have to try and think. Okay, so what I don't you've had both of these two guys on the podcast, so like that there is a difference. You've had like Connor on the podcast, and you've seen like you've heard about his crazy tempos and like his crazy repeats that he's
80
done.
mile weeks
And then yeah,
in
then
high
you've
school.
also had like Jackson on the podcast, and I'm pretty sure like talking with Jackson in the past, like we train very similarly. Like I've been running maybe like 45 miles a week since like February, like not anything crazy. But man, I just love doing fast stuff right now while like the legs are tired. So I did I did 3 by mile one time with a 400 in between each mile. And so I went like 445, 435, 428, and I did like a like 60, 58, 56 after like those, like after each one. Not three after each one, only one 400 after each mile. But no, that was a good workout and probably one of my best ones this year. And it's I love those mixed systems where you go back and forth from running hard and fast. So that was probably my best one this year. One of my best ones.
Clay, one final serious question for you. For those who have listened to our conversation and look up to you and aspire to be in your shoes one day to get to the places you have in the sport, what would be the final takeaway message you have for them?
Um, a piece of advice that I've been given a lot. There's kind of two different ways that I've looked at it. One is like, um, you have a lot of people in your life, and especially when you start running fast, you're hearing a lot of voices. Um, and I think a question that I like to ask myself is, who do I let have a, who am I letting have a seat at my table? Essentially, it's kind of a way to think about it. So, in other words, like what voices out of all the voices you're hearing, out of all the maybe all the interviews or all the coaching or this, like what are you really taking in to like actually like affect you, and what advice are you going to take, and what are you going to let build you up or tear you down or things like that. And so when you start hearing all those voices and you start hearing all the noise, ask yourself like what really matters in this time. Like I've had 100 people ask me since I've run 401, like, are you sad you didn't break 4, or when are you going to break 4? And I just have kind of had to start ignoring the question a little bit. I mean, I obviously answer things like that, but knowing that just thinking about the 4 minute mile is not the best thing for me in my training right now or for my mental space. Um, Whereas if I learn to enjoy my time with my teammates as much as I love getting flown across the country to run at a huge meet where they're gonna promote me or promote the meet or things like that, like if I'm not loving the little things just as much or more as the big things that lead to the results and that people actually see, then I'm probably going to get burnt out and probably going to make some decisions that aren't actually the best for my career and for my training or for my own mindset, things like that. And so, yeah, I guess that's my advice is think really intentionally about the voices that you listen to. And those couple of voices that you know are people that care about you and have your best interest in mind and love you and are going to lead you to do what's best for you, but also lead you to do the hard thing. When you find out who those voices are and who those people are, really lean into it and really trust them. And so, yeah, that's been a huge thing for me. Like I have my coaches, who I trust 100%. I don't understand sometimes a workout that my coach would give me, not often, just like every once in a while if I have a question or something like that. But I just trust him. I just do what he says because I know he has my best interest in mind. And same thing with my parents. It's like I don't know why my parents do have me do everything I do. I feel like they give me a lot of freedom, but I just kind of I just do whatever they say because I know that they have my best interest in mind. I'm not saying that I never disobeyed my parents. I disobey my parents sometimes, but but overall, like I trust them. And another like huge influences my in my life that I think better my running actually have nothing to do with running. Just like people that I can talk to make sure I'm in a good headspace and make sure spiritually I'm in a good place. Yeah, because I'm a big believer and we're made up of three parts: our mind, our body, and our spirit. And so you got to take care of each one of those things too. You got to take care of your body by getting sleep and by training hard and by recovering right. And then you got to take care of your mind by making sure, um, are you getting too anxious about these little things, or what are you putting your mental energy into? Like, how are you balancing school and running, or how are you balancing friendships and running? And then spiritually, for me, is just huge. If I'm not filled spiritually, if I'm not um, with people that are encouraging me in Christ, or if I'm not spending time worshiping or being in the Word, then my running is even going to reflect that. I feel like from my experience, and so yeah, making sure you are surrounding yourself with good people and that you're taking care of your mind, body, and spirit are pretty big for me. So I'd encourage everyone to do that as well.
Amazing. Amazing response. I love it. I do have to say, you mentioned your parents there. Shout out the Shively parents. I do want to mention your dad briefly because I remember met him at Festival of Miles. You were listening to the podcast at that point. I think he had maybe heard about it through you, but hadn't listened.
Yeah.
And then I saw him 2 weeks later at Brooks, and he started binge listening. I was like, my guy, and we had a good conversation about it before going into the stadium. So shout out the
Oh
Shively
yeah.
parents. Love it.
No, yeah. My dad, probably 3 years ago, if you would ask him, he maybe knew my times at that point, but I don't know, not much. Like he did not have knowledge of running. We were never a running family. Now, if you ask him, he probably knows you who has the fastest time in the nation in every event, and he loves running now. And so yeah, he's become a track guy, and I'm sure listening to the Running Effect has encouraged that in him.
Oh, it's amazing. Okay, Clay, final question for you to wrap up our conversation today. June 12th, off the track, or I guess June 11th through 13th is probably when you'll be there.
Hmm.
What's the thing you're most looking forward to off the track in Seattle?
Man, after you reading that quote to me about being an underdog and having nothing to lose, I'm just excited to go in and have nothing to lose, really. Yeah, obviously it's going to be a great time no matter what the race pans out to be. Just always a cool experience, and um, yeah, I always love the meet. But yeah, I'm really excited now just to kind of go out and yeah, just have fun with the race and see what I can do.
I love it. Clay, really appreciate the conversation. Always love my conversations with you. Keep crushing it. And I'll be rooting for the underdog, the guy who has nothing to lose on June 12th.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate what you do.